the belt of truth. We've got to have something that anchors us, right? Something to, keep us kind of in a framework. The belt of truth. Truth is a framework. They're building a duplex about 2 or 3 houses down. As you know, as you come into the house, you see in the neighborhood there, you see that building going up, and they have to frame it out. What they call frame it out, right? And but you've done framework, right? Okay, you got to frame, of course, the foundation. Okay, so the truth is kind of it is a foundation, but it's also a framework. Okay, and so we've got to have, because there's a lot of people out there trying to wear an armor of God. Lutherans are trying to wear an armor of God. Presbyterians are trying to wear an armor of God. Protestant Baptists are trying to wear an armor of God. Evangelicals, okay, they're all trying to wear an armor of God. They've preached on this a million times probably, okay? But if truth isn't part of this armor, I mean truth, I don't mean bits and pieces of truth, I mean truth. And where is that truth embedded? Where's the foundation of that truth? Let's go to Timothy here.
It's in the church.
Yes. Yeah, so we've got to start there. In 1 Timothy chapter 3, verse 14, start there. 1 Timothy 3:14 says, "These things write I unto thee, hoping to come unto thee shortly." So Paul wanted to visit Timothy. He says, "But if I tarry long, if I'm not able to visit you, in the near future, I'm writing these things to you, that thou mayest know how thou ought to behave thyself in the house of God," right? Which is the church of the living God. Oh, this is 1 Timothy 3 and verse 15. 1 Timothy 3:15. So he's saying, so if I'm delayed and I can't get to you when I'd like to, I'm writing this epistle to you, that thou mayest know how thou ought to behave thyself in the house of God, which is the church of the living God, which is what? Pillar and ground in the truth. Okay? So when we talk about the belt of truth, where's that truth fully dispensed, or should be fully dispensed? In the church. Okay? Now, if the church is the pillar and the ground of the truth, the pillar, the support, and the foundation, the ground of the truth, then they're the ones qualified to wear the belt of truth. Okay? So these others can say, well, we're wearing the armor. Well, if you weren't commissioned and authorized to preach the gospel, you're not a New Testament church, then you're not wearing the original suit of armor. You're wearing a pseudo suit of armor. Okay? Asher, what does pseudo mean?
Strong? Wait,
No. Pseudo. It's a tricky word because it starts with a P. No, does it start with a P?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a tricky word. Pseudo starts with a P. Go figure. Okay?
In English.
Yeah.
Pseudo. P-S-E-U-D-O.
False?
False. Very good. Very good. This guy's sharp.
Yeah,
He's sharp. Very sharp.
Like a pencil. That really takes after his mom, honestly.
Yes, well, we all know that. Yeah, yeah.
That's pretty
Yeah.
clear.
Yeah.
That's pretty clear.
Yeah. It goes without saying.
Yeah. And kind of implied and inferred.
Hannah's joking on that one, but she so it's a pseudo suit. Okay? Now, bless their hearts. I mean, I appreciate, people witnessing out there, don't you? I really do. I really do. The best they can do, though, is to prepare people for the nations, which is fine because that means God is using them. Really, He is. He's using them to prepare people for the bride to work to rule over. Okay, so I'm fine with that. But we who have been tasked, and we who are authorized, we have the greater responsibility. Okay? The genuine always has the greater responsibility than the pseudo. Okay? The pseudo just thinks they do. But to whom much is given, the more is required. And so every New Testament church will be required, will have to take, is required to wear this suit of armor. All right, so the belt of truth is very, very important. Breastplate.
Everyone, oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Everyone there's a plan for everyone. I mean, everyone's a part of God's overall plan.
Yes.
And where they're gonna end up.
Yes.
Whether it's beginning of the 1,000 years or after the 1,000 years,
Right.
it doesn't matter.
Yes.
It's all gonna be, it's all part of God's plan. And you know, like we said, we appreciate the Billy Graham crusades and
Yes.
the Joel Osteens and these people that are taking people to that first faith.
Yes.
We appreciate that,
Uh-huh.
and we're thankful for that. It means they're not following Islam, they're not atheists, they're
Right.
not doing those sorts of things
Right.
that are sort of counterproductive toward the spread of God's word,
Uh-huh.
right? Which is
Absolutely.
which is what we look at.
Yep.
I think 30 years ago, we probably viewed it as, well, they're not right, they're not the right church, but now there's so much counter activity going against just the name of Jesus.
Yes, yes.
That just, I mean, we almost feel like just to hear his name in any sort of setting
Is a blessing.
positive step.
Yes, yes, yeah.
And that could be a change of mindset, that could be a change of times, you know, the atmosphere of the
Mhm.
planet is different than it was 30 years ago.
Mhm.
But I certainly think that just the fact that someone says Merry Christmas to you is like, wow, that's fantastic, you know?
Mhm.
You know, you're not listing out the various holidays or saying happy holidays as some sort of PC type of thing. So,
Uh-huh.
like, those are the sort of things that you pick up on and are thankful for.
Mhm.
It's really up to them, just like we talked about on, Wednesday, shameless plug for Wednesday lesson. If Martin Luther did what he needed to do to
Right.
grab people out of the Catholic Church, but it's really up to the individual at that point to go find truth.
Right.
And to be able to find where this armor is in its entirety
Mhm.
being put on.
Yes.
And it's not half of it here, some of it there. I mean, in its entirety, it's in the Lord's New Testament church.
Yes.
So Joel Osteen has a place, Billy Graham has had a place, Billy Sunday years before him had a
Right.
place, right?
Billy Sunday, yes.
And so there were all these people who took people to as far as they could
Mhm.
from a truth standpoint.
Right.
After that, it's up really to the individual to go find it.
Yes, yeah. And it is there to find.
Yeah, and if they don't, then those people are gonna be ruled over forever and ever.
Right.
And
Yeah.
they're gonna garden, and they're gonna bring fruit to the city, and they're gonna be ruled over, and
Yeah.
they're a part of the plan, just like everyone else is.
They're a part of the plan, absolutely. And, it is unfortunate too that not every, what we might consider or call every scriptural New Testament church, because some have been tainted with, infiltrated with Protestantism, okay? And that's unfortunate, and so they'll be, held accountable for that too. But the breastplate of righteousness, of course, is that which helps to ensure that we keep the truth, right? That we guard the truth with our heart. Okay, so we looked at that last week. With the heart man believeth unto righteousness. Okay? It is from our spiritual heart, our innermost being, that we are motivated to believe or trust God to perform righteousness, a service that God will accept. Okay? So these are all vital components put in the framework of a suit of armor. All right. And then Asher, as Asher said, the feet shod with the gospel of peace. So really, the armor is not just for us to wear and stand there. The armor is for us to wear and carry out there, because this is a very vital piece of the armor. Okay, this has to do with the commission. Okay, so he didn't authorize us to then just sit there and hunker down in our bunkers. Okay, and we call them hunker Baptists. Okay, Rachel, have you ever heard of hunker Baptists? Okay, no, hunker Baptists. They just hunker down, and they just kind of stay holed up in their little fortress, and they don't go out with the truth.
They don't go ye therefore.
They don't go ye therefore, they hunker. Okay? The full name is Hunker Bunker Baptist. Okay? Hunker Bunker Baptist. But we don't want to do that. We want to have feet shod with the gospel of peace. Well, what does that mean? All right, how do you take us there?
Soldiers of the Lord must also have proper footgear. If they would carry the gospel to others, the Lord's churches were commissioned to carry the gospel of peace to the nations.
All right, so we were commissioned, and here again, to whom much is given, if you've been commissioned, then we're gonna we're gonna be required, okay, we're gonna be taking into account how we've done that, okay? And so, which is spelled out by the parable of the talents, where the day of reckoning came for each one who was given a certain level of responsibility, yes. Okay. All right, no, we're not letting you off the hook completely here.
Gospel of peace is the good news of having a peace relationship with the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Being properly shod, we are able to take the good news anywhere and everywhere that God so directs.
Okay, so the gospel of peace, as we're gonna see here, is more than just first faith. It's it's more than just, you know, that relationship that we have, as we're talking about at the very beginning. Certainly there's a peaceful relationship there, because that person will never see hell. Okay, but the Bible always is progressive. It never, it's dynamic. It never just focuses on one thing by itself. Okay. All right, Tamara, how about that one?
This relationship of peace is not merely referring to salvation from hell. Rather, the gospel of peace includes the special relationship of serving God in an acceptable way through the church.
All right, so the good news, gospel, good news of peace is how that we can enter into a relationship of peace with God, where we're not an enemy to God, we're on His side, okay? And so the good news of peace is what we bear or bring to the nations, okay? Our thrust, our goal, our objective is for them to, you know, join along with us and march on into the gates of the city. That's why we're here, to prepare a governing body, with which Christ will govern. The King of what? Kings, the Lord of Lords. Okay, Andrew?
I think our what's the word? Our message this year, during this time, not just this time, but, you know, our message overall has been tainted by the world as one of not as peace. You know what I'm saying? So it's almost like, you know, there's been people out there, there's been other groups out there that have kind of taken that you know, our message of peace and saying, no, it's actually a message of hate. You know what I mean? When we really have a message of peace,
Yes.
that we can be, our relationship can be repaired to God. It's crazy groups that are going out there in the name of their religion, and they're the ones who are going out there and killing people, or
Yes.
they are simply, you know, picketing or whatever, and that's what the world says. That's what they lumps them all together.
Right.
When we really have the message of peace,
Yeah.
the gospel of peace,
Yeah.
and that's for us to be able to be reconciled to God,
Mhm.
and to come into His assembly, learn the truth,
Mhm.
and worship Him. And but I mean, our message today isn't looked at as peace.
Right.
It's looked at as hate,
Yes.
with hate speech. You know,
Uh-huh.
you're excluding certain groups.
Right.
When we're saying God loves everybody,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
He won't tolerate sin.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so we, as mimickers of God, love people,
Mhm.
but we don't like sin any more than God does.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we have to, you know, position ourselves in that way, and we can't compromise that.
Mhm. Right.
And we can't just say, okay, everyone else is giving, and let's just give in here.
Mhm.
You know, I think it's swung both ways.
Mhm.
You know, we've been, not us, but I'm just saying God's people can either be too harsh or too lenient.
Yeah.
I think we need to find a middle ground.
Yes.
You know, and I think
Yeah.
we've done a pretty good job of that here.
Yeah, yeah. Mercy and judgment have kissed,
Right.
right? Isn't that Proverbs? Can you look that up? Something about mercy and judgment have kissed. You know, where they come together, they work together. Judgment, for sure, you broke the law. Mercy is, I'm going to, you know, work with you after having broken the law. Okay, I think mercy and truth.
Mhm.
Right, and you used a word that really is the buzzword for why, you know, we others perhaps are targeted. It's the exclusion, it's the exclusivity, it's the, God has a certain way, if the truth is framed. And outside that truth, it's outside His will. And so, the feet shod of the gospel of peace is to take that belt of truth and all of that out to the world. Okay? So we are not at liberty to change things along the way. And that's what other religions are doing, they're changing along the way. They're very fluid, they roll with the society, and they change with the times. There's even some churches, believe it or not, who used to have the word Baptist in their name. But they've since removed the word Baptist in their name so as to not offend. I say, all right. I say amen, Hannah. I say amen. Why? Because they weren't Baptists to start with. And now the whole world knows that they're not really Baptists. Okay? So yeah, get that name out of your name. Okay? It's just dragging the rest of us down. So I say thank you for removing the word Baptist out of your name of your church.
I think
Right.
it's Psalm
Oh.
85:10.
Oh, okay, good.
It says, mercy and truth have met together, righteousness and peace have kissed.
All right. Righteousness.
Psalm 85:10.
Psalm 85:10. The things that are right with God, the things that He considers right, and what? Peace. Okay? So when we're on the side of God and we're doing, performing His righteous deeds and righteousness, and He's accepting it, there is peace. There can be nothing but peace. Okay? Because the two go hand in hand. So this relationship of peace is not merely referring to salvation from hell, that's the beginning. But it includes going beyond that point to service in a scriptural church. Okay? All right, Brother Brian, we'll give you that.
The relationship of peace is not merely referring to salvation from hell, rather the gospel of peace, including the special relationship of serving God in an acceptable way through the church. The church's gospel of peace to the world is that of preaching salvation from hell and the opportunity to have peace with God through acceptable service in a true New Testament church.
All right, that's the gospel, that's the full gospel. So we're not shortchanging people, nor are we deceiving them or misleading them. Remember, we talked about misinformation, disinformation, right? And saying that all you need to do is be saved and you've got it all. One preacher said, from our Arkansas preacher said, I got it all when I got born again. Well, no, you didn't. You didn't get it all when you got born again, right?
You didn't get good grammar either.
That's not even good grammar, okay? You got something when you got born again, but you didn't get it all. In fact, how can you say you got it all when the Bible warns us that we could lose that which we worked for? Right? 2 John 8, someone look that up. How can you say I got it all confidently, when the Bible warns us that we can lose that which we have worked for, that which we've wrought, okay? I think it's 2 John 8, isn't it? Okay. Someone read that. Rachel, you got that for us?
Sir, look to yourselves that we lose not those things which we have wrought, but that we receive a full reward.
Okay. How can you say I got it all when I got born again? At first faith, you got it all. What? The city, bridal relationship, to sit with Jesus. How can you say that? That's ignorance. Okay.
Unless you're working for that first salvation.
Unless you're working for that first salvation. Yeah, I got it all. Yeah. And so, anyway, so the churches, true church, the pillar and ground of the truth, their gospel of peace is first faith, scriptural baptism, service thereafter. Okay? Right? Three things. Salvation from hell, that's your first faith. Okay? Scriptural baptism, and service thereafter, in the pillar and the ground of the truth. Okay? In that framework. All right, that's our message.
And I think it kind of puts scriptures into perspective. It kind of helps us out with scriptures that in Matthew 7 when there's so many people that have come to Christ, and
Yes.
and it's almost like, you know, those people, I believe, are different than the ones that were in the truth, knew what the truth was. That one that knew what his master's will was and didn't do it.
Right.
He knew what was coming. He just didn't want to do anything about it.
Right.
He said, I knew you were a hard man. I knew
Yeah.
that you wanted to, you know, and all those things. So I don't think that they're the ones in judgment, and they're in Matthew 7 saying, well, I thought we did this, I thought we did that. I don't think those are the ones. I think those ones knew what they had, and then they turned their back on it on purpose. I think the ones that we're talking about today, I think those are the ones who genuinely thought that they were doing what God wanted them to do. And they're the ones who are surprised when they didn't get it.
Yeah.
And so I don't think that God's people are going to be surprised any more than that servant was surprised when his master came home and didn't find him doing what he was supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
I think that those are two different camps.
Yeah. You know, this seed that blossoms into a full-grown rebellion to the point of marching up against the capital city to overthrow Jesus and his government, the seeds of that rebellion at the end of the 1,000 years would have had to have begun at some point early on, and then just festered for those 1,000 years.
And I think the offspring of those people are tired of seeing them try. They're tired of seeing them weeping and gnashing their teeth.
Yes.
It's their parents, it's their grandparents, it's their great-grandparents.
Yeah.
It's them watching them with regret, and I think regret over 1,000 years fuels into anger. And that way, because there's no indication that the devil has to really scrounge up people at the end of the 1,000 years once he is released to go up to the city. It seems like he just kind of shows up and they're ready. They're ready to go.
Yes.
because that disappointment and, you know, disheartening feeling that they had, the first generation had, that they didn't make it, has turned into anger by the end of the 1,000
Yes.
years.
Yes.
The devil's got a prime army ready to go.
He does, primed.
And so they've been kind of pumped over the last 1,000 years and primed for that moment. Because I think human emotion shifts. It's sort of that 5 stages of grief. You know, at some point you're distraught, but then you turn into anger.
Right.
And so at that point, then it's got to turn into action, which is what happened.
Yeah.
So.
And we're not saying these are saved people, but that God rains down fire and brimstone, this army, okay? We're saying that these are that generation of unsaved offspring
Yeah.
who finally, with the devil as their commander, it's given them a way now to, you know, group under this leadership of Satan, whereas they may have wanted to, but who would they get as a leader? Okay, well, of course, all of this is foretold by the Lord, so we know it's going to play out like it's supposed to play out. He waits till, they don't march before, they wait till the devil's, you know, released.
I think it goes to show you that no matter what government there is, man still wants to do what he wants to do.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and the people who really wanted to be in that city are there. And
Right.
it doesn't matter what government, if it's an oppressive government, if it's a righteous government, people are just gonna do whatever they wanna do, and they're gonna, in this case, he's gonna gather his hands of the seeds of people, and those people are the ones who are saying, we don't know any other way. We've never lived in any other government other than Jesus' righteous government, and they're still gonna choose to rebel against him, and that's just the heart of man.
Yeah.
Well, and it's because they, as Andy so eloquently and wonderfully said, that they don't view it as the righteous government that we do. They view it as the oppressive government. That's their only view,
Yeah.
because it's no longer walking by faith, it's now by sight. And so they see that this is what's happening, and all they have to go on is their fellow people out among these nations that have to, why do we have to give tribute to them? What are they doing for us? You know, and it doesn't take much, right?
Right.
To kind of, you know, from someone who showers on a semi-regular basis, you have to lather up that soap. The soap doesn't sit there and lather up itself.
Right.
You gotta lather it up, and it takes people to really do that.
Yeah.
And that's what happens is, you know, anger begats anger, and you get one person, you know, now you've got an entire flame of people that are just
Yeah.
angry.
Yeah.
And then you got the perfect leader to come in and go up, but God's not gonna, oh no, what are we gonna do?
Yeah,
They've
right,
got a
right,
large
yeah.
army.
Yeah.
Didn't see this coming.
Yeah.
I like that analogy, the
What's that?
lathering of the soap, I
I
like
know,
that.
Yeah.
I know.
A lot of
Yeah,
lather,
that's-
lot of
that's
lather,
pretty
yeah.
Yeah,
good.
they're lathering
Yeah.
up, and I use
Yeah.
body wash, but still, it's the same concept.
Yeah.
You're gonna have your,
Smells really good.
Thank you, warm vanilla sugar.
I was gonna stay over there, but anyway, you're gonna have your people that enter into the city that, or not city, sorry, enter into the nations that are just extremely thankful that they're there.
Mhm.
And I think they're gonna pass that on to
Yeah.
their children,
Yes, yeah.
and their children's children, hey, we're happy to be here.
Right, right.
And I think those are the ones that probably don't go up.
Mhm.
But I think the ones, you know, that are bitter, that we see in
Mhm.
Matthew 7,
Mhm.
that they're gonna pass that bitterness on.
Yes.
You know, and for a time they'll cry, as it were, and God's gonna, you know, take away that, those
After the
tears.
1,000 years, yes.
After the 1,000
Yeah.
years, but like,
Yeah.
you know, Philip, so something said.
Imperfectly.
That's,
Correction.
and you're right, after the 1,000 years is, but see, during that 1,000 years, he's gonna have,
Yeah.
you know, all that time to get angrier.
Yeah. The scriptures fit, don't they? You know, whose tears is he wiping away at the end of the 1,000 years? And there'll be no more crying. Well, who's been crying? So you have to kind of, you know, think all this through. And the anger we're seeing today toward, you know, Christianity, is again back to this being excluded. In other words, so you Christians are saying this, that unless we believe you're Jesus, you see, you know, that's too narrow for them. You know, and so at the end, during this 1,000 years, it's the same spirit. So why aren't we in that city? Let's all, what kind of a God is this running this place that would separate us out, put us here and you there?
We preached in Jesus' name too.
Yeah,
I led more people to the Lord than you did,
yeah,
you know.
yeah,
And they're never gonna see him.
right,
So it isn't like they're like, oh, there he is, just a glimpse, all I need is a glimpse.
right,
He's not leaving that throne.
right,
And so they're not gonna see him, he's not gonna walk amongst the nations.
no.
He's in the city where he belongs.
Right.
And so they're not gonna catch a glimpse, they're not gonna catch a sniff of Jesus anywhere. And I think, again, that eventually evolves
Yes.
into an angry generation.
Uh-huh.
And they're procreating at a pretty good rate over 1,000 years. If there's that many people
Yeah.
ready to go,
Yeah.
it isn't just that many people, it's that many people angry.
That's the key, that many people are angry, that's amazing, amazing.
With the perfect government in place.
Yes.
As
Yeah.
Andrew so perfectly said,
Uh-huh.
that perfect government is finally in place. We've been wanting it for 6 millennia.
Yeah.
And it's finally in place, and they're still livid.
Yeah,
And they're still angry,
Yeah.
and still wanna do what they want.
yeah. And who's inside? The descendants? Well, all the patriarchs are in there. There's Abraham, there's Noah, there's Adam and Eve. All those people are inside that city. And then Isaac and Jacob, okay? So there are the faithful among all these the covenant people. And so who hates the covenant people with a passion? Who thinks they should be in the covenant? Who thinks that they have covenant rights?
Ishmaelites.
Yes. And so there will be some people, I believe, representing, you know, that Arabic descent, who are saved. And there's a lot of them are turning to Jesus. It's not, you know, ignore that fact, okay? But then they raise their children, and it maybe their children said, you know what? We should be in there, okay? Well, I know who's not gonna be in that city, a guy by the name of Muhammad, okay? And so yeah, this, like you said, this swells into anger like you wouldn't believe. In the meanwhile, before all that happens, we've got a job to do. Okay, we've got to wear this armor so that we ourselves can be in the city. And part of our job that we've been tasked with is to go out and preach the good news, the gospel of the kingdom. Okay, that you too, that other people can be in that city, and we can, you know, walk toward that direction, elbow to elbow, elbow in elbow, arm in arm. Okay. So Brian, you read that last one, right? He has a piece. I don't think you did. Did you read that last one?
No, I interrupted you when you,
Oh, okay.
that third one.
Okay, yeah, go ahead and grab that last paragraph.
Okay. When a Gentile comes into a New Testament church to serve and worship the Lord in spirit and in truth,
Mhm.
he is at peace with God, for he is in the will of the Father. He is being obedient to the faith established by Jesus.
He's in the pillar and the ground of the truth. Okay, Jesus started the church. The church is the house of the living God, the pillar and ground of the truth. Okay, so this isn't just, I'm going to church. Well, you're going to the house of God, which happens to be the pillar and ground of the truth. Okay, so it's not just a religious center, right? So when a Gentile joins with us, we're Gentiles. When another Gentile hooks up, joins up, enters into the common priesthood here, then he's in the will of the Father. Okay? The trick is to stay in the will of the Father. You're our servants. All right. So Philip.
To carry the true gospel, the soldier of Christ must first have his own feet properly shod. The word shod is a word meaning to bind.
To bind. So think of what they wore back then. What they wear? What kind of footwear? Lydia.
Sandals?
They wore sandals, and sandals usually have a what? Like a strap or something to tie around your feet and your ankles, right? To hold them on. Okay, very good, Lydia. Very good. Okay, so that's what the word means. That's what the word means. All right, so we're going to give that one to Lydia because she's so bravely answered.
The idea is that of binding or tying a shoe onto our feet. The word preparation in Ephesians 6:15 appears only here in the New Testament. The word means readiness and can also be used in the sense of having a firm footing or of being established. Thus, we are to become firm-footed and established in the good news, so to carry it to the nations.
All right, so basically, like in the airplane, when there's an emergency, they always tell the adults to first put on your own mask, and then you're in a position then to help the younger children, okay? So, to carry this gospel, we first know the gospel, we ourselves know it, we learn it, then we're in a position to help others, okay? And so, we don't have to know all the doctrine, deep stuff, but we do have to know that Jesus saved us from hell, and we share that with other people, right? Then if they start asking other questions, you can say, I haven't really studied that out yet, but I'm glad you asked, and I'll hook you up with someone that might be able to help you out. Okay, so Andrew, get ready. We're all gonna point to you. Okay. But that can't be an excuse forever. We've got to start digging in ourselves, all right, to help others. Paul included in the necessary piece of armor the need for our feet to be properly shod or tied before carrying out the good news to others. Notice before Jesus sent out his 12, and later he sent out his 70, that they were first trained. He first trained them. He taught them. Then they went out and preached the gospel of the kingdom. Okay. Did you like that?
Fancy.
Our feet need to be prepared, anointed, to carry the gospel to others. We have to be always in a state of readiness, having a firm footing, understanding of truth, as we go about witnessing and fulfilling the Great Commission. The church that's armed with the truth is armed with the gospel. Okay? Arm ourselves with the truth, the belt of truth, and strap on those shoes, and go out and carry it. Okay? Makes perfectly good sense. All right, the shield of faith next. Okay? All right, let's go. Father in heaven, we do